Welcome back to Lead Pouring 101. So this is all about finishing the jig. So you've already picked out your mold, your hook, you poured it, you powder coated. All you got to do is finish. So we're going to show you all the basics of what you need to do that and show you how fun and easy it can be. So with all that being said, let's get started. So for jigs with eyeballs, all you're going to need are your eyeballs of choice and some super glue gel. It's that simple. You can get 2D or 3D eyes. I always use 3D eyes. I just feel like it looks a little bit better, but you can use what you want. So I'll show you right here on this little freestyle mold how simple it is to just add some eyes to your jig head. For adding eyes to your jig head, you're just going to take your super glue gel. If I can get it to come out, you're going to put just a tiny dot right there in the middle of it. Hopefully you can see it. You're going to take your eyeball of choice. You're just going to set it right there, press it down, make sure it's right where you want it, and that's it. Now just set it down, let that super glue dry, and you're good to go. And now for tying jigs with skirts, I'm just going to briefly go over the tools and materials that you're going to need to do that. So you're going to need a bobbin and thread, and the thread is going to be Danville's 210 denier flat wax nylon. You're going to want a good pair of scissors. It does make a pretty big difference being able to make those nice precise cuts accurately. You're going to want a vise of some sort. This one in particular is a rotary vise, which means I can rotate the jig, and if I'm doing multicolored skirt patterns, it just makes it a little bit easier. It's not necessary to have a rotary vise, but it is handy. For tying the jig, they do make a whip finishing tool. I'll show you how to use that. But I typically just tie all my jigs by hand. I'll show you how I do that. And then for material, there's a ton of different materials out there, but the two most basic are going to be your silicone skirt tabs like this, and then living rubber. And living rubber comes in a large roll. You cut it to size. We'll show you how to do all that here in a minute. But that's just a basic rundown of the tools and stuff needed. I'll leave everything linked down in the video description, so if you're having trouble remembering everything, don't worry, it'll all be there. You can head on over and check it out. And today I'm going to show you three of the most common techniques for tying a skirt. We're going to show you a standard skirt, a finesse skirt, and an umbrella skirt. We'll cover each one of those, show you how to do each one. It's pretty simple, and there's a ton of different tying techniques out there. What I'm actually going to do, for those of you that want to deep dive and learn a ton of different techniques, head on over to Dan's channel at Small Jaw. He does a ton of tying videos on anything you could think of. He's got videos for just about any kind of tying technique, pattern, you name it, he's probably got it. So if you really want to kind of learn a lot about tying, head on over and check out his channel. But with all that being said, we're going to start off with just a standard skirt, and we'll show you how we do that. So we're going to show you how to tie just a standard skirt. So you're going to take your thread. When you come across your jig head, you're just going to cross over the thread right here. I like to make just, 5 or 6 wraps around it, snip off the tag in, and now if I pull on it, you can see we've got our nice thread layer started. We're ready for our skirt. So for this, we're just going to use the standard silicone skirt tabs. Now I like to just eyeball it, so you want to make sure you're centered forward and backward. So what you do is just get it pretty close to what looks like centered where your thread's going to be. What I like to do is just hold the skirt material, put a couple loose wraps over it. Then you can take this top half, fold it over, and see if your length is right. If you need to pull it a little bit, right now is the time to do it. So now we've got the front and the back even in length. Now this is where it's nice to have a rotary vise. You can kind of rotate it around and see. As you can see right here, I don't have any skirt material right there. So again, before I cinch it down, I'm just going to take my finger, kind of spread that out nice and even, and make sure I have that skirt material all over the jig head. Now if everything looks good, I can take it and I'll kind of cinch down on that first tab. Now I'm going to do an accent color, which is just going to be a different color on that jig head. So I'm just going to lay this on here and do the exact same thing. Put a couple loose wraps around it. I'll kind of rotate it around, make sure I've got that color all the way around the jig head. Once I've got it spread nice and even, I'll cinch it down, and now this is where I'll start to throw some extra wraps on here. Don't get too carried away with this. You don't need a ton of thread around it, but I'll wrap it around, make sure it looks nice and clean and even. Now from here, this is where we're going to tie it. I'm going to try to show you guys how I tie mine by hand. So what I do is I take my thread and I loop it around my fingers. I go around that skirt material in the front, bring it back around to me, twist it, bring it back around, twist it, and I'll twist it and do that probably 4 or 5 times. And then I'll cinch it down, and then usually I'll do that same thing again. Just make my loop, go around the head. Make sure you're not pinching the skirt material while you do this. Cinch it down, and then all you got to do is snip the end of your thread, and you've just tied the knot. After you tie it, if you want one extra layer of protection, this step isn't really necessary, but if you want that additional security of locking those threads in, just put a little bit of this Loon water-based head cement on there. Let it dry. It just takes a couple minutes to sink in and dry all the way. What I do while that's drying is these skirt tabs, you can see they're connected on the ends. So you're just going to take your scissors and cut those ends off, and that's going to free up each one of those individual strands of material. You're going to do that on both the front and the back. And now you're good to go. So while that head cement is drying, I don't usually wait until it's completely dry. I'll go ahead and take the jig out. And then what I do is once I get it out, I'll trim the bottom of this skirt material nice and even to the desired length that I want. Then we'll glue in our weed guard, and that is all you have to do for a standard skirt tab. So for trimming the bottom, I usually just take a big pair of scissors. Just make one good snip all the way across. I'll turn it, make sure it's nice and even. And that's all you have to do to trim it. And now you're ready to glue in your weed guard. So for that weed guard, you're going to use that same super glue gel. Now, some people will take the gel and squeeze it into the head of the jig. Most of the time, I just take it and squeeze it onto the end of the weed guard itself. You can see I just put a little glob on there. I like to pull the skirt material out of the way. Shove that weed guard into the head of the jig. You can see there we're a little bit squeezed out. I'll just take a little piece of paper towel, wipe it off, and again, let that glue dry, and now you're done with your jig. So for this one, we're going to show you how to do a finesse skirt. So you're going to start the exact same way you do with the standard skirt. Get your base layer going. So for our skirt material on this one, so before where we centered up that tab above our thread, what we're going to do on this one is we're going to cheat it down. Because when we cut this one, this side of the skirt tab, we're going to cut it right up here above the head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just leave, I don't know, maybe about 1/2 inch above the head of the jig to where we're going to cut. We'll do the same thing, put a couple loose wraps around this. We'll check it, make sure we've got good coverage all the way around it. If it all looks good, I'll kind of cinch it down a little. Now what I'm going to do here, if you're doing an accent color, so let's say you wanted to add another color, you would do the same as before, just line it up and layer it on. However, this one, I'm just going to do a basic green pumpkin jig. So I'm actually going to take the back half of that skirt tab, I'm going to fold it over, I'm going to match up this side of the skirt tabs this time. I'm going to do the same thing. Put my loose wraps around it. Spread that out. Make sure it's nice and even. And what this is going to do is just going to save you skirt tabs. You're actually getting twice as much use out of this one. by cutting it in half and using it like this, you're going to have a lot less waste and your skirt tabs will go a lot farther. So once everything looks good, we're going to cinch it down again. Go ahead and get our thread wrap on there, get it nice and tight. I'll try to back you guys out real quick. Hopefully you can kind of see I do the exact same method for tying. Did 5 of those, cinch it down. We'll do 5 more. Cinch it down. Trim our tag in. Go ahead and put just a little bit of head cement on there. And then for this one, we're going to cut these tabs right up here just above the head of the jig. Now you're going to hear this referred to as either a finesse cut or a spider cut. There's a couple different terms for it, but it's basically just a finesse jig. It's most commonly seen on these little ball head jigs. However, you can do it with any jig you want. And you can see here, it just kind of flares up around the head. And now for these, I like to just stick my scissors in those little tabs, pull it tight, and snip. That way you know you're cutting each one nice and evenly. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. Do whatever you find works best for you. But we got everything cut and freed up. Now you can see here, if you want, you can trim the bottom again, but if not, you have a nice little finesse jig, spider cut, whatever you want to call it. You can see around the head of that jig, it all just flares out. But that is option number 2. And now we'll show you an umbrella skirt, which is typically used on swim jigs and chatterbaits. Alright, and for our umbrella skirt, all we're going to do, get our same base layer going, but what we're going to do with our skirt tab is we're actually going to lay the part that's connected right here at the base of where that skirt goes. We'll do the same thing, kind of loosely wrap around it. Now this one, because you're not cutting the end of that where the skirts are connected off, it's going to kind of spread it pretty evenly around it for you. Now for this one, what I like to do is the same as the finesse jig. I'll actually just take the skirt, if I'm using a solid color, fold it back over and do the same thing. Tie that side onto the jig head, and then once we're sure that it's all nice and spread evenly, one thing you can do, because I'm tying on the side that all the skirt material is, I take these little, they're like little hair clips I think, and I'll kind of just throw a clip over all that skirt material and the front of the jig head to kind of keep everything together. And then we'll tie our thread around it, get a nice wrap going. We'll go ahead. I'm not worried about this. You'll see some people who will try to trim off that little excess material back there. It doesn't bother me. As long as it's not hanging over and messing with the bait keeper, I just leave it. But I'll go ahead and tie this the exact same way. Once I can get it tied, do the same thing. Throw a little head cement on it. And then this one, just like the finesse skirt, I'll do the same thing. I'll take all of these looped ends over here. I will cut them all free. And just like that, you have an umbrella skirt, and I'll show you the difference in this and the regular one. So you can see here, if you look at the back of this umbrella skirt, it's literally like an umbrella. It just comes out from the top and flares down. Now, like I said, this is used most of the time on swim jigs, chatterbaits, spinnerbaits, things of that nature, where most people are running like a paddle tail on the back. And what an umbrella skirt does is it kind of gives you that skirted effect, but it doesn't interfere with the action of, say, your swim bait on the back. So I don't tie this skirt on anything other than swim jigs. I typically just tie standard skirts on others. But if you're wanting to use an umbrella skirt, that is how you do that. Because if you look at your standard jig, when I look at it from the back, you can see you have that skirt material coming down the middle, and you can see how much the skirt is inside of that jig where your trailer is going to be. So when you look at the two side by side, you can really see the difference. So now moving on to living rubber. So as you can see here, this is how wide these strips of living rubber come. I like to take about 10 or 12 of these strands and just peel them off. And the reason being is when you lay this onto your jig and you start to wrap around it, you're going to have a little bit of overlap right here. So when you take about 10 or 12 of those off, it's typically going to make, as you can see, if I pull this together, that's about the right amount to where I get one good layer of living rubber all the way around the jig head. If you leave it full length and you have that little bit of overlap, it doesn't matter. It's just an aesthetic thing. You're going to have a little bit more of that color on one side of the jig as opposed to the other. So as you can see here, with taking those off, it's just about the right amount to where those two come together. Now with living rubber, you can do just a living rubber jig. As you've just seen, you can do just a silicone jig. What I like to do is put one layer of living rubber on first, because the color you put on first on a standard jig is what's going to fold over and be the outside color. Then I like to take what I call an accent color and put it on second over the top of the rubber, and you'll see when we're done how this silicone skirt is going to be on the inside, that living rubber on the outside. And I like a mix of the two. I think it just in the water, it performs really, really nicely. But you can play around with it. You can do whatever you want. Once we got everything on there, we're going to go ahead and wrap it. Now on living rubber, I like to try to wrap it a little bit tighter than just standard silicone. Now you just want to be careful. You can snap your thread if you're pulling too tight, but you want to make sure you get a really nice tight wrap around living rubber, because you have to pull it kind of tight to cut it free, and we'll show you in just a second. All right, I've got you zoomed out just a bit, and you'll see why here in a second. So just like the others, with the silicone, all you have to do to cut those strands free is just cut the ends off, and it's pretty easy. Now for living rubber, what you have to do, you have to pull this rubber really tight and then slowly cut across it, and it frees them up. Now you can try to do this all at once. What I like to do is just kind of split it down the middle and do half and half. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull this rubber tight and just slowly cut across it. And you can see how that frees up all those individual strands. Now we'll do the same thing on the bottom. We'll do the back the same way. This is why I mentioned you want to make sure you have a nice, good thread wrap so that everything holds, stays in place, and you're not pulling your skirt off the jig. And there you go. You can make sure that it's all free. If you have any that don't come apart all the way, you can just kind of think of it as like a Twizzler. You can just pull the little strands apart. There you go. And then same thing from here. When I flip it up, I'll just cut across the bottom, trim it to the length that I'm looking for, glue in the weed guard, and you're good to go. And there you have it, guys. It's that simple to finish your jigs. It doesn't have to be that complicated. You can see with using the same tools, with just adjusting your technique a little bit, the different options you can get with your umbrella skirts, your standard skirts, your little finesse skirts, whatever you want. This is the really fun part for me. You can play around with your skirt patterns, your colors, living rubber, silicone, mixing the two, whatever you want. It's a really, really fun part. Once you get to this part, you're pretty well set and you're ready to go make some great jigs. And just like with everything in lure making, you can keep it very simple like that, or you can take it to the extremes. In both the living rubber and silicone, they make it in the standard sizes as well as a fine cut. The fine cut, sometimes you'll hear referred to as frog hair, but it's really, really fine. So think of the strands of your skirt material. It's about half the thickness of the standard strands. It's great for little bitty finesse jigs where you want a really small profile. I use it quite often on the little Kitech jigs that I make. I've got a video a long time ago showing you how to make those. But there's a ton of different skirt options. You've got your silicone, living rubber, Lumaflex is one that a lot of guys use for spinner baits. There's marabou, flashabou, bucktail, all kinds of different things. Play around with it, have fun with it, and figure out what you like and what works best for you. And one of the most common questions I get on videos where I'm tying skirts is where to get skirt materials, where there's probably 4 or 5 different places that I buy my skirt tabs from, and it all just comes down to who has what I'm looking for in stock. Skirt tabs are one of the things where it's kind of a roller coaster. They come in, they get sold out. They come in, they get sold out. So just go to, I'll leave a bunch of those sites linked down below in the description with all the supplies. Just look at who's got what in stock. That's how I determine where I buy my supplies from. And there you have it, guys. We've broken it down step by step, from picking out your mold to selecting your hook, pouring it, powder coating, finishing. We've tried to show you as best as I know how, step by step, how to get your finished product. Now, we are going to do one bonus video in this series. That'll be the next video coming out, and it's going to be all about mold modifications. I get a ton of questions about mold modifications, so we're going to kind of go over the basics, show you guys a general outline of how to modify molds, things to look for, how to select a mold that has the potential to be modified and make a lot of different things with that mold. We'll kind of go over all of that in the next video, but for the basics, that is the last video for just the general, this is how you make a jig. But I hope you guys liked this series. I hope you found it useful, learned something from it. I enjoyed all the feedback from all of you on each video series up to this point. Let me know what you thought of it, if you like this kind of series. Like I said, I know there's a ton of things on the lead or the soft plastic side of things out there, but there's not a lot for the lead pouring, so I kind of wanted to cover it all and help you guys that are curious about getting into this side of the tackle making hobby. And as always, I thank you guys for stopping by and watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on the next one.